Welcome to Brawny Conversations. I am Patrick Braun, your host. This podcast will provide our listeners with informative and entertaining discussions held with experienced people covering a wide range of topics. If you want to shorten your learning curve or just learn more about one of our topics, this is the podcast for you. Enjoy our discussion. Dustin Danzie was born in Shreveport, Louisiana, and raised in Homer, Louisiana. He was an exceptional high school football player in Louisiana, which led him to sign and play D1 football at Southern Mississippi as a defensive back. And that's where Dustin's story gets very interesting. We'll get more into that in our discussion today. Dustin is an owner of several businesses, including Nope Defensive Back Training Academy, the Uplift Youth Performance Training, personal fitness and athletic training at Coach Up. Dustin has also authored 2 books, Do It Now, Don't Wait, and The Answer is Perseverance, which can be purchased on Amazon. He is also an assistant high school football coach at Homer High School. This is a man who is committed to his family and to giving back to his community through coaching and mentoring today's youth. I was introduced to Dustin in 2018 when he lived in Houston. Dustin was recommended to me as an excellent speed trainer who could help my 2 sons improve their footwork and speed. They were already fast, but I was told that Dustin could help them be even faster. Well, Dustin did exactly that, and not only did he help them run faster, but impacted them spiritually and mentally. He combined his physical training with mental conditioning, and my sons loved it. Dustin has a unique ability to connect with people, motivate them to be better, and to work harder. Our discussion today will provide you with insights into Dustin's story that will provide you with hope and will inspire you to pursue chasing and fulfilling your dreams, no matter what stands in your path. Dustin, welcome to the Brawny Conversations podcast.
I appreciate you for having me, man. No problem. I appreciate you for having me.
I'm excited about this conversation, Dusty. You're a great man, and you've got a lot to share. So let's get started. Right? As you're sitting down for this conversation, what are your thoughts and expectations?
Well, throughout the conversation, I hope to express my thoughts on being a youth mentor and why we're so important to the community. And also, I hope to inspire anyone who may hear it. Whether young or a seasoned adult, I just hope to encourage you to find your passion and just go after it.
I love that. That is so good. So, Dustin, as I mentioned in the introduction, you wear a lot of hats. You are a very, very busy man. So please tell us, how do you juggle all these responsibilities and still keep the awesome, positive attitude that you have?
Right, man. Well, like any human, I have my days, but however, I understand it's life. I also understand that, passion will make it all worth it. My love is to mentor kids. So I'm all for staying busy mentoring kids. Staying positive is easy because I have to, practice what I preach. I'm always encouraging the kids to stay positive. So it's only right that I do the same. So, it's a grind, but, at the same time, I'm doing what I love to do. Which is be around kids and mentor kids. So I'm all in on it.
I love it. And I know you made a huge impact on my sons. And that positive mentality was a separator and very special, very special. So, Dustin, when I think of you, words that come to mind are coach, mentor, quality, family man, honest, healthy and fit, always smiling. These are words that most people would like to be associated with. Were you always this way, or did these traits evolve over time?
I can honestly say I've always been that way. My mother was that way as well. She never let anything change the way she felt. She fought to stay happy. In my first book, Do It Now, Don't Wait, before she passed away, I had a dream, and I talked about that dream in the book where she said, it's your fight now. And I promised her I would, so here I am 16 years later, still at it, still fighting to keep that positive attitude, even throughout my fight with depression. I never put that negative energy on another person, which is why so many read my book and had no idea what I was going through. That was definitely a good and bad thing, but I fought my way out of the darkness. So, but I can honestly say I've always been positive. I'm known, in my area as the guy who's always positive, even in the hallways at my school today. That's when they see me. That's the thing. They say he's always smiling, always positive. That's just because I want to be a light for people.
Well, and you've got a great smile. That's one that draws people to you. Your energy is amazing. And hey, listen, we know life's hard. Life's difficult. Right. It's not easy. And sometimes it punches you in the mouth. And that positive attitude and that smile can get you through some really, really tough times.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And I love the fact that you're putting that message into the youth of today.
Right.
They need to hear it, because sometimes, as parents, we've done a good job for our kids and almost made it too easy for them. And it won't always be that way, right?
Right. Yeah. That was one thing I worried about, when I was out in Houston, is I just kept saying to myself, but I want them to learn what I learned, coming up, how I came up, but I don't want them to see what I saw, so
Yep.
It's definitely, it's a battle we deal with, but, I'm just thankful I can put my kids in a position that I never seen growing up. So I love that part of it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So let's go back in time and get into your story a little bit, because it's so powerful and there's so much to learn from. You were an all-district two-way player in football. You played both quarterback and defensive back. You had 5 Division I offers to play football. Sounds like everything was lining up for you and you're on top of the world as a senior in high school. You ended up signing with Southern Mississippi in 2004. So, there's a lot of folks out there that'll be listening to this that are wondering, what was that like to be an unbelievable athlete right at the top of the world, sign in D1? What was that recruiting experience like, and why did you ultimately choose Southern Miss?
Right. Well, coming from Homer, Louisiana, before my time, I couldn't even remember but one athlete who actually, went through the recruiting process and actually signed, so I didn't really have anybody to talk to about it. So I kind of was on my own, so it was everything was just new to me. And I also knew to everybody around me. But, the recruiting process was very inspiring to go from a country kid, just a country kid, to the phone ringing all night with schools calling. I ultimately chose Southern Miss because the culture there, and I felt it'd be, able to, they'd be able to support me and the things that I needed. But also my top 2 schools were TCU and Southern Miss. And when USM, which is Southern Miss, beat them on ESPN, I was like, yeah, that's where I'm going. So as a teen, senior in high school, when I see somebody, one of the teams went on ESPN, they kind of crossed themselves out. So when Southern Miss beat TCU on ESPN on Thursday Night Football, I was like, yeah, that's where I'm going. So I couldn't wait till the coach called me that next week, and I told him, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and commit. So it was exciting. I wouldn't take that back. One of the best moments of my life. Just answering that phone, seeing all those numbers come on. Back then, the caller ID. It was a special thing, so I wouldn't change it for the world. I would definitely tell all the kids that, it's definitely humbling, but, you just got to keep your options open. And if I could go back, I would really just tell these kids who are going through that process, now make sure, they have your majors and all that stuff. I was just excited to get recruited. I didn't care what they had to offer as far as that, my major. I just want to go somewhere and play football. But now that I've gotten older, I can look back now and say, yeah, I would definitely look into that more. But, Southern Miss was a great experience.
That is great advice. It's the world's changed a lot since,
exactly.
Right. Not with, social media. It's exactly. Crazy, and kids are getting recruited. I know in baseball, kids are getting recruited in 8th grade, 9th grade, and committed at that point.
Right.
Is that happening at football now as well?
Yeah, it's definitely happening, man. These kids are getting recruited earlier. It's a good and a bad thing. I've experienced the good in it where kids, really get motivated just like I did, and they really go hard and they work hard to do what they need to do to actually complete the process. And I've also seen it go bad, with some kids getting, big headed, with these colleges reaching out to them so early, they become uncoachable. So, I see the good and the bad in both scenarios, but, it's just like anything. It's always that white and black side. It's always going to be one side or the other side, so, but again, it's humbling, and you got to be ready for it, because when you got all these schools calling you, you have to be prepared to make a decision and live with it, because most kids they really dwell on trying to make the right decision, when I always was told there is no right or wrong decision. That's simply the decision that's made and you go with it, so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good perspective. And,
right.
We had this thing that impacted the world pretty significantly, right? COVID in 2020. Yeah. Yes, and that really changed the athletic landscape as well, right? You've got
right.
Athletes now that have an extra year or 2 of eligibility, and they're still, they're 23, 24 years old. And at 23, 24, you've got a completely different body than you do at 18, right?
Yes, you do. Yeah, completely different perspective on life as well.
It is. And, you got to think about these kids that commit today at 8th or 9th grade, and,
right.
they're they're unbelievable. They're advanced for their age, but they're not ready to, even when they're 18. I'm not sure they're going to be ready to compete with 23 or 24-year-olds, right? So they got to stay in the weight room the whole way along.
Yeah, that's why what I do is so important. I'm happy about that, So I definitely love that because these kids, you really have to be on top of your game. You can't go in thinking I'm not going to work out. I'm just fast. Yeah, I hear you. Everybody's fast. they big and fast. So you got to get on it. Cross your T's and dot your I's.
That's why you come in so valuable. And it's amazing because, and I'm going to go on a little tangent here because, Dustin has no defensive back academy where he's teaching me the finer points of playing defensive back. But he also is an unbelievable speed coach. And, as an example, my two boys were both very, very fast, and we're talking running in the 6.7 to 6.6 to 6.7 second 60-yard dash, which is a key measure in baseball. Wow. And Dustin was able to get both of them to run 6.5s, which is a huge increase in a very short amount of distance. And it all had to do with technique, start, and particularly the drive and the glide phases. Right. And, if you're listening to this out there and you want to get faster, technique is every bit as important as strength. And you need to find someone like Dustin who has that knowledge and can transfer it to you, because fast can be faster with that technique. Right, Dustin? Did I articulate that correctly?
You did a great job, and that's so true. But a lot of kids are so raw, and they think that, that raw speed is what can really get them from A to B. But, just like in any yard dash, 60, 40, 20, you're going from A to B. You need to be in a straight line. You need everything lined up straight. You definitely don't want anything off, because that one thing that's off is going to be the difference between that 6'5" and a 6'6". So your boys did a great job of really, buying into what I was talking to them about. I mean, even from the first session with them, they could tell that I had a lot of passion for getting them to understand that this is important. I know it seems so basic, but this is important. Why? Because that 6'4", that 6'6", and that 6'5", or that 6'4" is the difference between that school calling and that school never calling you. So, man, I love what I do. I love to get out there with the kids and really get them to buy into it. And I love to see that light come on when they finally get it.
It's so good. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I loved about you is you weren't, hey, your boys need to come in here every day, or your boys need to come in here every week. You had us come in when we needed to. Right. But you also gave my boys exercises and drills and things to do on their own. Right. So that they were getting better in between the sessions. And, that's something about you. Right. You to this day, they both still use those exercises, and activating their glutes and all those things you showed them. They still do those things today. And I could see it when Jackson's, up warming up before a baseball game. I can see him doing the exercises that you showed him. And it's awesome, man.
That means a lot, man. That means they were listening. They understood that I was only trying to help them. And I still get messages and emails, man, from my kids that I've trained 6 years ago. And they might send me a picture of them doing some of that same stuff, just to let me know I'm still all in, coach. I'm still all in. It's some of the greatest messages I ever get, man. I'm so appreciative because, like you've seen, those kids really felt my passion. And I wanted to be that. I didn't want to be that trainer that was just a trainer. I wanted them to know that it was more about them understanding that, whatever you want to do, you got to be all in. You can't be 50%. So if I'm giving you things that take you over that 50%, as far as your mentality towards what you're trying to do, just use it going forward and be all in on it. So, and don't wait for your trainer to tell you what to do. You do it on your own. And your boys did a great job of that. They didn't hesitate to message me whenever they needed some advice. And that's what it's about.
It's so good. And I know that you've worked with some very high end, athletes that were headed from high school to college, but I also saw you working with, average youth that just wanted to be fitter and healthy, and parents brought them to you to kind of show them the way and helping in that way too. Right. It's not like you're just working and training the best. You're training everybody who's open to learning.
That was my thing from day one. Even when I started training in Houston, I never wanted to be the guy that, train all these Nike and professional sprinters and these NFL guys. I just wanted to be, the trainer that would train any kid, because it was all about mentoring me. It wasn't really even about the training. I knew I was great at training. I knew what I needed to know. But it was most important to let them know that not only did I care about you in the sport, I just care about you as a person. And that's what really, was really different about me as far as, training in Houston. There's a lot of great trainers out there, but I wanted to be one of the great trainers who was also a great person. And I wanted them to feel that. Mm-hmm.
You accomplished both of those items, Dustin, without a doubt. And for those of you, obviously it's a podcast, so it's just audio. But Dustin keeps himself very fit, and he can still go at any moment. I can
still get out there. I got a race with my guys back home here soon, man. They keep calling me out at practice, so I'm back home. They keep hearing my name as one of the best to ever come through the school. So, they want a piece of me, man. So I got to stay on it. Pretty soon I'm going to have to get out there and race my guys back home.
Hey, all you young bucks out there, be scared, because Dustin can still go. There's no doubt.
Indeed.
I love it. All right. So let's, you're coming out of high school now, mm-hmm. and you're headed to Southern Miss. Talk to us a little bit about what it was like to go from being the guy on the gridiron there in Homa, playing quarterback, playing defensive back, and now all of a sudden you're in this college football arena. What was that transition like?
Oh man, from top dog at your high school to just a freshman. It's a humbling process. Yeah. It's and the speed of the game just jumps out at you very quickly. It's just a whole nother level. I was used to waking up early when I was in high school, but the amount of things you had to do after waking up early in college was just exhausting. I always tell these kids these stories, and I'll run it to them. They're like, okay, you want to play D1, right? All right, well, let me explain to you how it's going to work. And I go through this, over and over again, this thing. You got to be at this meeting. You got to be at DB meeting. Then you got to go to defensive meeting. Then you got to go to specialty meeting. All right, then you got to go to this meeting. Then you got to go to a team meeting. Then they be like, then, okay, you go to the room. They might give you an hour to take a nap. And then you got to go to practice for 2.5 hours. And then you better go eat, because you got to go to a study hall after that, So them kids just, their mouths open. I'm like, yeah, you say you want that, right? But I don't think you really want that. You have to have a different kind of mentality, man, which is why I really just, I'm so high on just collegiate athletes, no matter what sport, it's because you have to love it. Because like I said earlier, when you go to college, if you really don't like your sport, it will be exposed very fast. You have to love it. You got to be all in. So all these, like I tell my kids, all these guys you see on the TV playing, man, those guys love to play ball. That's why I love to watch them, because you're watching a bunch of kids who love to do what they do. And that's what it's about, because it is exhausting. I can remember many nights, I wrote in my first book how I called my mom. I was just trying to make up any reason why she would let me come home. Any reason, just let me come home. But my mother luckily was not going at all. She was just like, nope. I remember all those nights you said you wanted this. And if you don't want it, so many other kids want it. So you better stay there, because they will quickly give it to somebody else. So she did a good job of putting it in perspective. But man, it's a grind, and you have to be prepared.
That is such a truth that your mom laid out there for you. Right? That's a truth of cold water right in the face.
It is right in the face, because she, I put it in that book, man. She didn't answer the phone for 3 days after we had that conversation, because she knew that that's all I wanted to say. So she forced me to take it on, take it all by myself. And I appreciate it for that, because it made me grow up. In those 3 days, I grew up a lot, because I realized that you're right, Mom. I did sit up with you and tell you that I was going to do this for you. So I don't want to run from it, and I just had to grow up. Whereas if she would have been answering, she would have been able to just be mama, and just kind of be there, and I wouldn't have been able to mature, So I appreciate her and her wisdom for understanding that that's just what's needed. And I know that hurt her to not answer that phone, but she had to do it, which I appreciate.
Yeah, that's very hard for a parent that spent 18 years raising a child, right? Mm-hmm. Mentoring, pouring into, making sacrifices for,
right.
And then you send them off to college, and it's like, I got to let them fly.
I got to let them go. Yes, it's hard.
It's hard. Well, so Dustin, now this is a pivotal point in your life, this is where you really face some challenging life difficulties. So if you would, tell us what challenges you encountered during this time and ultimately where it led you and how you overcame them.
Right. Well, when I got there, of course, it was exciting, to see what we just talked about as far as my mother crying, dropping me off, and me feeling just very accomplished. When I got to Southern Miss, I can remember the first day when we pulled up, the news from Jackson, Mississippi was down, and they were getting interviews with the new freshmen coming in. It was a new world quickly. I mean, as soon as I got out the car, it was cameras in my face and a mic. And I'm like, oh, my God, this is not high school no more, So I felt great, but to go from that to, 2.5, almost 3 weeks later, they came with the news that I was not cleared by the NCAA clearinghouse. And it really hurt so bad because the day before that, I had led everybody in tackles in the last 2 days scrimmage, So I went out there and really proved myself to the defensive coordinator. I was flying around. I was finally loose, and I was finally feeling like, okay, I can do this. The speed of the game was slowing down. Of course, I've been in practice for 2.5 weeks. So, but to go from leading the team in tackles to the next day getting that news, it kind of crushed me. And I took it the wrong way. If my perspective was, just sit out a year, keep getting better. And then next year, get your grades up. And the next year you'll be there. But instead I went the wrong way. And I started thinking that, what, maybe I wasn't supposed to be here after all. And all those negative thoughts that you could easily have, I chose to entertain them. And that kind of led me down a bad road where I just started, seeing my world as negative. I started, tapping into what I didn't know then was depression, because I didn't understand why I didn't want to go talk to my teammates anymore. I was embarrassed to go anywhere. I wanted to stay in my room and just trying to fight out of that. And then to come home and to get the word that my mother was terminally ill with cancer, and well on her way out of here. It was just like, man, this is too much for me right now, And from there, I just kind of started, diving into, the drugs and things like that, just anything to get my mind to free fall away from what I was trying to deal with, because I had just lost my brother and my best friend my junior year in high school, so I was just trying to fight through that. And then now it looks like I'm going to be losing my mother here soon. So just, on a teenager, man, it was just so much on my mind at the time. And I didn't really have a mentor. Nobody called me to check on me. Nobody. It was just like, man, you got to do this for the town. I don't care what you're going through. You're the first one. So that pressure was also a part of it, because I didn't understand depression. I didn't know why I woke up every day and just wanted to sit in the same spot. And the whole day, I just kept telling myself over and over, go somewhere. But it's just like I was fighting my own brain or my own mind at times. It was just a bad, situation I was putting myself in. But, I can personally say I was doing it to myself because of my perspective. But it took me a long time to really fight out of it. It took, a lot of people just coming around reminding me of who I used to be, because for a while I just kind of forgot that I could even play ball, because that's how deep in depression I got. So to fight my way out of that, was definitely I'm definitely thankful for God for that, but it definitely can get hard. That's why I am who I am today. That's why I mentor kids, because a part of why I do what I do is because I want to be that was never there for me, which is that mentor that can be there, which is why every kid I've ever trained can still call me today. I'm always going to be there for them, because I don't want any young adult to go through what I went through. And I know I only went through it because I didn't have that mentor there to tell me that, hey, man, life is all about, things you have to persevere through. You always got to prove it. It's nothing going to be given to you. Well, that's kind of really all I needed. But instead, all I had was a dorm room to sit in to think about how embarrassing it was to not be able to go to practice with my teammates anymore when I was supposed to be one of the best freshmen in the class, so. It was definitely hard.
What a difficult thing to deal with at such a young age, right? And
yes.
And obviously you weren't equipped to handle that because you didn't have that mentor or someone to talk to. So I absolutely love the way you've changed this around and are making sure that the people around you have access to someone to talk to and to tell them and help them deal with these situations. Wow. That's powerful and such a shame, because I know what a great athlete you are, and I can only imagine what a great athlete you were.
Right.
but God had a different plan for you. And now,
Yes,
in fact,
indeed.
actually, you're impacting more people today than you probably would have if you had been that super stud at Southern Miss.
I wouldn't take it back for the world. I love the lessons I was taught. I didn't understand it then, but just like my second book, I understand it now. I do understand now. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, Dustin, as you mentioned this key thread of you didn't have a mentor, mm-hmm. and now you know the importance of that. Right. I just recorded a podcast that I posted last week. And one of those themes, and this happens to be a 30-year-old guy who achieved his career objectives very early. But the critical element there was he found a mentor very early in his professional career that really made a huge impact. And, it's critical. I think everybody needs a mentor, whether you're 40, 50, 60, or 16 or 18 or 22. Right. A mentor is a critical role.
Yeah, very critical, especially today with today's youth, with social media. These kids tend to compare themselves a lot today. Everything is, who's doing it, who's getting recruited, who got offered this, who got offered from this team, and these kids are comparing themselves so much. You add that with anxiety, the drugs that sneak their way into, a teenager's gang life, bullying, a mentor is definitely needed now. It's something that, we didn't see a lot of. But again, that's why my passion woke up in me, because I seen that, all I really needed was somebody that I could just talk to, because whatever's going on in your mind, it will find its way out. It will find its way out. And the fact that I never talked about it, which people read in my first book, how I just kept it to myself. That's where all the bad stuff starts to flood out and show itself. It will always show its ugly face. So a mentor, though, is just somebody, just like I've always been for those kids in Houston, kids back home, just somebody you can talk to about whatever. I tell them all the time, and whenever you talk to me, you're talking to me. It's not you're not ever talking to anybody else. This is between me and you. You can be truthful with me. I'm going to be very truthful with you, and then we can get something accomplished, because you can understand that you can get it out. Whereas I didn't have that. Everybody I talk to want to talk about football. They want to talk about how is it there and how is it. Well, I didn't even have football on my mind anymore. I had problems on my mind. I just wanted to learn how to deal with it. So mentors are very important. And going forward, I believe is going to be even more important.
Absolutely, Dustin, 100%. Now, as you've gone through this time, it was pretty challenging, and you started to pivot, right? You started to pivot out of it. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about when you started to pivot and what direction you headed in to get to where you are today. Right? So let's talk about from that Southern Miss. You're having those difficulties, and now you started to see the light. You had friends come talking to you, showing you who you were, right? How did you pivot and get out of that?
I can always go back to one story, because it is the moment in my life where I realized, what I was put here on earth to do. And I realized why I had gone through so much. And this is a story of me. This was around about 2007. I was living in Little Rock, Arkansas. I was doing security at a high school up there. Shout out to Hall High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. But it was a day where I was just really at one of my lows. I was at all-time low. I just didn't know which direction I wanted to go in life. But it's funny how God seems to put you in a place to show you things all the time. So I remember just going to work one day, and this kid was just sitting on a bench in the lobby in the back courtyard. And something just told me to go talk to him, and he told me he lost his grandmother. And me just telling him to lay, I sat down beside him. I told him to lay his head on my shoulder, and I said, "Man, you can cry on my shoulder," and I just sat and talked to him, and to see him look at me and say, "I appreciate you." That feeling was different. I can't explain that feeling. That was the first time in my life that I felt like I love this moment. Like this is it, and that's when I realized that my purpose here on this earth is just mentoring kids. And that's why I feel like I went through everything I needed to go to prepare me for my purpose. And ever since that day, that's all I've known is I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but I know whatever I'm going to be doing is going to have something to do with mentor kids. So from that day in 2007, even when I was still struggling to get out of what was depression, but I always knew that's what I love to do. So I never hesitated just sitting talking to kids. And eventually my passion turned into my purpose, and that's what I'm doing to this day. That's years ago. And that was the moment that woke me up, and it was confirmed about a month later when a young lady who was doing bad in school, she showed me a report card, and, it was horrible. And I knew she was smarter than that. So I told her, look, I'll give you this amount of money if you just make the honor roll. Well, she came back that next 9 weeks and made a 4.0. And it just, and I was just like, that moment was like, to see her, how happy she was, she was like, give me my money. I was like, I got your money, I'm laughing. But when she walked off, I walked off and I cried, because I just felt like, man, I love this stuff. I like to inspire these kids, so that moment was the moment I really woke up and realized, okay, I know now what I want to do in life. I just have to find a way to do it. And here I am, man. I'm on this podcast with you and talking about how I mentored your kids as well as, almost 2,000 other kids out here in the world. So, man, God is so great, bro.
Dustin, it is so good. It is so good. And I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to meet you the way we did and you did too, make an impact on my boys. And it's amazing. I love your story. It's so good. And what you're doing is why really all of us have been put here on this earth, right?
Yes, indeed.
I love it. All right. Well, so you're working with a lot of middle school and high school aged athletes, and hopefully a lot of them will turn into this podcast, right? That's what we're hoping.
Yes,
what's the advice that you would provide to those middle school, high school aged athletes? We're talking, 13 years old to 18 years old that you work with who want to be excellent and reach the next level of performance.
Man, just understand that every road to something special is full of obstacles. You will have to constantly, consistently prove you truly desire the accomplishment or whatever it is you're trying to get to. Those who persevere will prevail, but those who make up excuses and give up, they will always put in a position to watch those who didn't quit. And I tell my athletes that all the time. You can watch and be discouraged, or you can see and let those who prevail inspire you, and you get back in the game yourself. So there's no easy road. Those athletes who are the best athletes, they even have their opportunity to, run into those obstacles, as well, and I'm talking about those athletes who it all just comes easy to. They're just the best athletes. Well, they're going to have to go through what they have to go through as well. So to any athlete out there in the world, I would always just tell them, any middle school athlete, just like, you have to have that perseverance mindset, that prove it mentality, that no matter what happens, I'm going to find a way to get my goal accomplished, because that's just really the story of how I got to Southern Miss, and the story of how I got out of that hole I was in to get back to this point. Was I realized that was the key, is no matter what I go through, I know what I want to do. I know my passion. So I'm going to stick to my passion, and I'm going to figure this thing out, and I'm going to fight through whatever I have to fight through. So just, always be in that prove it mentality and know where you're headed and do what you got to do to get there.
Dustin, that's so good. And, that's right in the money. Life is going to hit you in the face at some point. And,
yes,
if there's, there are people out there in middle school and high school that are the best athletes in their city right now. And, but a tougher day is going to come, because at some point they're going to get into that arena where everybody was the best city in their athlete,
right? Or
best athlete in their city. And man, it's the difference really becomes that attitude and that mindset that you're talking about. And I love that you say persevere and prevail, prove it, right?
You have to, you have to.
It is. Sometimes it's almost easier, and I hate to say this, but easier for those people that maybe weren't the best and had to struggle all the way along. There's a great story I just learned about this week. Josh Allen, the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
Lightly recruited out of high school.
Right. He
was unbelievable. Ended up going to some college I never even heard of.
Right.
And nobody even really wanted him still. And, here he is, arguably top 5 quarterback in the NFL, doing amazing things. But
definitely,
he always believed that he had the talent to do it and was going to do it. Right.
Right.
So your messaging is right on point, and there's stories around us everywhere. that are good examples.
Right. The tortoise and the hare, you just no need, that those who boast and brag, the people that really had to work hard for what they have and their ability. Those are the ones who are just quiet, sitting back, and they're just working. They don't want to talk about it. They just go to work. And they go through what they got to go through, and they fight. That's why, what you said earlier, that sometimes it is easier for those athletes because, they have spend more time focusing. And, the ones who it comes easy to, they spend more time just boasting and bragging about their ability, when eventually you will hit that stump in the road. But those kids who didn't have all that ability, they know how to handle it already. That's been them their whole life. They've been fighting their whole life. That's all right. They know. But that kid it always came easy to, they don't understand what's going on right now. They like, no, it shouldn't be this hard. This is why you see so many of these top athletes and professional guys, it's so hard for them to accept that they're not the best anymore and retire. They just try to keep going until it's just they get cut because they never understood how they were not the best. And it's a sad story sometimes for a lot of them, but eventually they have to humble themselves and snap out of it. But it's definitely the truth.
Good stuff. You got to embrace the grind, right? Embrace the grind until and when you're done embracing the grind, it's probably time to hang it up at that point.
That's what Peyton Manning said. And he was the master of the grind and the process. That's what he always said. I just love the process. When I stop loving the process, it's time to go. That's what it's about. When he couldn't stand, to go to practice. And it's the same story with my, the guy who inspired me, which is Charles Woodson. He said, when he woke up the day before a game, no, it was the day of the game, and he was getting ready to go to the stadium, and he realized that he just didn't want to play that day. He knew then it's time to retire. He actually said it that morning. He said, this will be my last year. He said it, because he knew that was the first time in his life he just didn't want to go play football. And that's big ups to him for admitting that. He humbled himself, and now he's very successful. And, he's a wine brewer, wine seller. So he has his wine going. He's a Hall of Famer now, but he understood that once I don't like the process anymore, I'm going to go ahead and let it go.
That's it. And the process, no matter what your athletic ability is, the process is what makes you great.
Exactly.
That's what makes you great. I love it.
Exactly.
All right. So we've got listeners out there, and everybody wants to make an impact in some way. And obviously you're making an impact in a different way than you thought you would when you were 18, but it's way more powerful now. So what advice would you have for that listener that just wants to make an impact in the world in some way, but isn't sure even how to start?
Right. I'd say, find your passion first. That thing that you just love to do. Once you found that, start there. Once you're great at that, people will admire you. When they admire you, they listen to you. But remember, do things from your heart. That's what I've always done. Don't let money or material things be your driving force. You will always find yourself empty when you do that. Yes, when you buy that house or that car, you're on a high, but eventually that high will come down and you're searching for that next thing to buy. Instead, just serve people. I've made my life, to my purpose in life to just serve people. Even when I was without, I was always happy and full of life because I get more out of seeing others shine their light. While they shine, I shine as well. So that's the biggest thing I could put out there to you is just, find your passion and let your passion lead you to your purpose. And when you find your purpose, you'll find your peace. You'll find that it in you that will easily get through the hard days because throughout that hard day, you probably were doing something you love to do anyway. So that's what it's about. So good. So good. All right. You have trained a lot of athletes. I'm going to guess probably thousands of athletes. Right. Do you have a couple of stories that you'd like to share with us that you're proud of? And it could be based on anything. It doesn't have to be great athletes, just ones that stick out in your mind. I mean, all my athletes back in Houston, who have gone on to play, be a collegiate athlete, man, that's my success story. They live it for me. I tell a lot of them, go do it for me. If you can't wake up and feel like you're doing it for yourself, want to wake up and do it for me, because I can't go back and do it over.
That's very cool.
You can use your time to do it, and as well as the athletes who decided that sports was not their thing and they pursue careers in a trade or just go to college to gain expertise in their chosen field. Man, those are some of my success stories, man. Any of those kids, man, any of those kids that I see out. I think I had a young man I trained when I first moved to Houston, just got married. Man, that's my success stories, man. So just seeing them grow up. But I'd say one story that I could say brought tears to my eyes was, Coach Casey, who's the head coach of back home where I'm from in Homer, Louisiana. He's the reason why I came home. He called and asked me, and I told him I couldn't, if I can't come home and say no to your face, I'll be there. So and I guess I couldn't say no to his face, so when he asked, so I'm here, but when I first got home to Homer in 2014, me and him got there together. He was also the next athlete after me to play college ball. He signed with Louisiana Tech, and he was inspired by me when I left, because when I left to go to Southern Miss, he was coming into his freshman year. So he really looked up to me, and he went on to have a very successful career at Homer as well, one of the best to ever come through there. He's the head coach now. But when we first got home to coach there in 2014, I mean, we were horrible. We were 1-9. It was just I think my program had 3 different coaches in 3 years, 3 different head coaches in 3 years. So, that would kill a program any day, because the kids won't think it's serious when you got a new guy running it every year, So to see him win the state title last year after he was named the head coach 3 years ago, man, that was one of the best moments as far as a success story, because I understood the process and the grind and what he had to go through all those years where we went 1-9, we went 2-8. And even when I left to move to Houston, they still had some struggling season, So to see him be named the head coach after I was left, and then to go back to New Orleans this past December and to watch them win a state title, man, that was probably one of the greatest moments of my life, So I could say Coach Casey and his perseverance was really one of the stories that inspired me, and I love it. Every time I think about it, I just smile.
That's beautiful, and I will tell you, and this, and this is for the listeners out there that aren't in Texas or Louisiana, but if you win a state championship in football in the state of Texas or the state of Louisiana, yes, you've accomplished something major, because these are 2 states that live and die by their Friday night lights.
Yes, indeed. That is so true. That is so true.
I love it. All right, Dustin, you've already authored 2 books. When's the 3rd coming out?
And I said I was going to release the 3rd one this summer, but I'm behind. I got home and got so busy. I'm probably hopefully I'm gonna be this busy until December, when we're back in New Orleans Superdome for another state title this year. So hopefully when I get some time and after we won a state title this year, I can go ahead and complete the 3rd book. The 3rd book will be called The Neighborhood Dad. It's inspired by one of my good friends, his dad from my hometown, who was always the dad to all of us in our neighborhood. And so when I speak of not having a mentor, I can't really say that about him. He just, he was a neighborhood dad. He was one of the only ones who would come to our games, and he would just, he would cheer for all of us. He wouldn't just cheer for his son. Every time I made an interception or a tackle or a touchdown, I could see him up there, and I appreciated him. So, about a year ago on Father's Day, I've seen him at the park. I was not Father's Day, but it was Father's Day weekend. I was hosting a fit camp back home, and he came up there to tell me how proud he was of me. And at that moment, I realized that I need to do a book for him, because he's always been that guy. So I said I was going to write a book for him called The Neighborhood Dad. And I wanted to really be a children's book, an animated book with kitty pictures in it. But I'm going to get creative with it. But I definitely wanted to inspire all the dads out there to really step up in your neighborhood and be the mentor for these kids, because, a lot of these kids don't have that dad in their household. So I'm going to really put a lot into that book. So I don't want to just put it out and just put it out there. I want to make sure when it's done right. So I can't give you a date on when it's coming, but it will be coming. The next book will be called The Neighborhood Dad.
What a great title. What a great concept. And I do look forward to reading that book. That'll be a great story to go through. Dustin, if you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself advice, what would it be?
Just continue to see it through. That'd be the biggest thing. No matter what happens in life, just see it through. Remember that the answer is always perseverance. That is always the answer. If you need to confirm that, there's so many scriptures in the Bible that tell you that those who prevail will succeed. So just continuously see it through, keep that positive mindset, no matter what your current situation may look like, never let it change the way you feel. Always have that positive outlook and just go forward and just keep stepping forward. Eventually you will walk right into what you're supposed to be doing.
Dustin, that's fantastic. That is so good. And we've all been through difficulties. I'm an older guy. I've been through a lot, and a lot of situations that weren't always great. Right. But just when it feels the darkest and you can't get out, at the end of the day, it will pass.
It will pass.
You breathe, and you keep moving in a direction, and things do get better, and things do work out. They may not work out the way you want them to, but a lot of times they work out the way they should. And it's okay. But your comment there to see it through is absolutely 100%, because no matter how bad it is in your perspective right now, it'll be better tomorrow, and it'll be better the next day. It just takes time. You got to see it through. Great phrase.
So true.
Okay, Dustin. Now it's time for our rapid fire brains and brawn segment. You're the brain. You're the brains. I'm the brawn. Okay. So I'm going to ask you 5 quick questions, and you're going to provide me with quick answers.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Number 1, what's your favorite movie?
Apocalypto, Mel Gibson.
Oh, very good. All right. What's your greatest accomplishment?
I'd say co-owning the Uplift with my business partner, Casey Dupre.
That is a great business, and it's still doing great work here in Houston, right?
Yes, indeed.
The Tomball area.
Yes, indeed. About to open up a new facility up on 2920 in Tomball here soon. So, yes, look out for that.
I highly recommend their services. Good stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay, what is a goal that you are still chasing?
Open up recreation center back home in North Louisiana. I promised my mother I'd do that before she passed away, so I'm working on that right now.
I love it. That's awesome. If you could spend a day with anyone, past or present, who would that be?
Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale would definitely be. Rest in peace, Earl Nightingale. I listened. His audios were something that really inspired me to wake my mind up and see things differently. So Earl Nightingale would definitely be that person.
Okay, very good. Tell me a little bit about Earl Nightingale. I'm not familiar. Tell me a little bit more about him.
So Earl Nightingale was a radio broadcaster. I found him on YouTube when I was really going through a lot, and it just said, I don't know, the video was called The Secret. He was really basically a life coach. He just taught people how to use your mind, to create whatever you want. He talked about the law of attraction and the things that I preach to these kids, always staying positive and always having that outlook that things will go your way eventually. He was big on that. He passed away, I believe, in 1989 after a heart surgery, but you can go back and listen to some of his audio. He has over 5, I believe, albums of recordings that he did, and I just listen to him. Sometimes when I'm just riding to work, I just put him on and just listen to him talk. I can listen to Earl Nightingale talk all day. He made so much sense, and he could wake anybody up because he was so positive. And he talks about his stories as well, about how it relates to his life and how his thing. He was also a part of Pearl Harbor. He was one of the people that survived Pearl Harbor. Okay. He jumped in the ocean when the things were fell down on their ship. So it has a great story of perseverance. Earl Nightingale is definitely one of my favorite people that ever live on this earth.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I'm definitely going to check that out. Indeed. That's really insightful. Mm-hmm. Okay, and where is your favorite place to travel or visit?
I'd say any beach or lake house with a direct view of the sun shining on the water. I'm there. Just put me there.
Sounds good. I'll go with you.
Yeah, something about the sun shining on the water, man. It just do something to me. Every time I see it, man, it opens my mind up. I first said I would write a book when I first seen the ocean. The first time I ever seen the ocean, that's when my mind said, I'm going to write a book one day. And I've written 2 books since then. So, yeah.
It's awesome. I was surprised when you wrote your second one, and you're going to keep going. You're going to have a whole library one day. I love it.
Also, man, I want to leave something for I want to be here forever. That's what I told, my kids, man. I'm not going to ever leave. You can always read, because anytime you read something, you're in a conversation with the author. So if anybody want to ever be in a conversation with me anytime ever on this earth, they can just read my books, and they can be right there with me. And I'm so thankful. Mm-hmm.
Dustin, you've been a fantastic guest today, and given us so much good information and things to think of, and the way you're pouring into today's youth and actually living and breathing and being a mentor to them. Any other final thoughts for our audience?
Oh man, I'm just so excited, for you to reach out to me to actually ask me to be on this podcast, man. I'm so proud of you. Continue to shine your light on this world, and continue to do this podcast, man, because people and kids and teenagers all over the world, they need to hear at least something that I will say, that other guests will say. It's always something that somebody needs to hear. My life changed because of something I heard somebody say in the audio. So continue to do this, continue to serve. And again, I'm just honored that I made my way out of the darkness back into the light. I'm meeting good people like you to be able to share that time with your sons. And they would definitely always be two of my favorites, man, just because of their personalities and how they receive me. I can't thank God enough, man, for waking me up to this way of life. And this is it, man. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, Dustin, my pleasure. And thank you again for being a guest. This is a little project for me. I've had the blessing in my 32 plus years of professional career to interact with a ton of great people that have powerful messages that might not get out there if I didn't do this. And so it's and that's why I'm covering the topics I'm covering and just enjoying it. So thank you for being the guest. And I want to thank you again for this very memorable conversation. I appreciate your insights. I'm sure our listeners will as well when I get this posted sometime next week. If any of our listeners would like to connect with you, what are the best ways to do so?
And you can just, look my name up, Dustin Danzie, DUSTIN DANZIE on Google. They'll lead you to all kind of sites where you can find me on Coach Up. You can go to my personal website, which is www.coachdustin2.com. That's coachdustin2.com. And reach out to me. Also, I have an author page on Amazon. So you just type in my name. It'll bring up my books. You can also click on the link that goes to my author page. And just reach out to me about anything, whether it be, about my books or about just mentoring and, ways to approach kids or ways to, life coach these kids in the community. I'm for it all, man. Anything that has to do with mentoring kids, I'm for it.
And we're going to wrap today's Brawny Conversations podcast. Special thanks to our guest, Dustin Danzie. And I also want to thank each of you for choosing to listen to this podcast. You have been listening to the Brawny Conversations podcast. Thank you for choosing to spend time with us today, and please subscribe to the podcast to receive our latest episodes and give us a follow on social media. New episodes are now in production, and we can't wait to share them with you. Pursue your passions and help others along the way. Have a great day, and thank you for listening.